and welcome to Microsoft Mechanics Live. Coming up, we're joined by Power BI expert Justyna Lucznik to take a look at Power BI's role as part of the Power Platform and also helping you to prepare your data across sources. Now, we're going to demonstrate the latest Power BI capabilities to help you discover and explore insights in your data, including automated machine learning for predictive modeling, new AI visualizations with root decomposition trees for root cause analysis, and easier ways to integrate your data using new Q&A visualization. Please join me in welcoming, though, Justyna Lucznik from the Power BI team. Welcome.
Oh, it's fantastic to be back. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think a lot of people are probably aware of Power BI's role as really building custom reports and all the awesome data visualizations that you can do with it. But a pivotal, yet not very well-known role that it plays is also helping you to prep and consolidate your data across your apps and your systems and all your services and all the databases that you use every day.
Right. So most people know Power BI as this powerful data visualization tool. It lets you build beautiful reports. It lets you find insights inside your data. But it's part of the Power Platform, which comprises of Power Automate for automating processes, Power Apps for taking action. Power BI lets you do more than just analyze your data. It actually plays a really important role in the data consolidation process. So Power BI lets you pull data from lots of different sources, cleanse it, bring it together, and store it in the Common Data Model format, or CDM format. This means that Power BI can make use of this data, but so can other services, like Azure Databricks, Dynamics 365, Adobe, and many more.
And just to pause you here for a second, for those people that are new to the CDM or Common Data Model, what's its function?
Yeah, so this is an open format that Power BI uses. As you prepare your data, Power BI saves this data into the Azure Data Lake in CDM folders. CDM folders are made up of CSV files and JSON descriptor files called model.json files. And these files can be read and written by the Power Platform, by Azure Services, by Dynamics 365, and others. You can think of it as like a common language that lets us all collaborate on top of the same data.
Right, so now your data scientists and engineers can actually work on top of all your organization's data, and Power BI really plays that important role in this case to do things like service integration and also at the data level. But how does this all work?
Yeah, so data preparation on top of the data lake in Power BI is done using something called Dataflows. So let's take a look. Here I'm preparing some supply chain data. And you can see over here on the left-hand side, I'm bringing in data from lots of different data sources. Now, all of these purple boxes that you see over here are called data flows. So these data flows actually represent a lot of data transformations that are happening behind the scenes.
Okay.
Now, these different data flows can also be chained together to consolidate all of my different data. And as, let's say, I'm to refresh one of these data flows over here, Power BI takes care of all the functional dependencies. So I don't have to worry about things like my data being overwritten. Now, behind the scenes, all of this data is actually being stored inside the Azure Data Lake. So if I pop this into a list view, and I open up my Azure Storage Explorer side by side, you can see over here that I'm connecting to my Azure Data Lake. I'm inside my Power BI blob container, and I'm inside my supply chain view workspace. Now, all of these folders that you see over here are CDM folders, and they're just representing all the different data flows I have inside Power BI.
Right.
So if I go ahead and jump into one of these, you can see all of these different folders are actually storing CSV files. And most importantly, I have my model.json descriptor file over here that Power BI can read and write. And this allows my Power BI analysts to collaborate with others inside the organization. So that means if my data scientist, for example, is working inside an Azure notebook using Python code, they can go ahead and read and write the same data flows as well.
Right, and it's really powerful. So you basically end up kind of with reusable ETL blocks, and you've made up the data readable, and you've made it really better from across apps and the analytical services that might be able to tie into it. So now you've got your data sources all in. Why don't we move on to some of the new things that we can do with it?
Yeah, so we're actually adding a lot of very powerful enrichments that you can do with data flows in Power BI. And one of them, which I'm very excited about, is actually the ability to build machine learning models directly inside Power BI. So let's take a look at how we could do that. I'm going to jump into my sales order data flow. And over here, I have this back orders entity. So in the supply chain world, if something is on back order, it means it's not available for me to purchase. It's out of stock. So that's a bad thing. We want to minimize back orders.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little icon over here, and I'm going to add a machine learning model.
Okay.
So the first thing I need to do is I need to choose a field I want to predict. And I have this true or false field that tells me whether a product is on backorder or it's not on backorder.
Right.
Now I'm going to hit Next. And here, Power BI is actually going to take a look at my data. And it's going to recommend what sort of model we should be building. So over here, it's recommended me a binary prediction model because something
it's either in backorder or not in backorder. So
exactly.
It's kind of two states. Yep.
Exactly. So here, I can choose a state to focus on. And I can change the labels. That should say high risk or low risk.
Yep.
And then the last step of what I have to do is choose what kind of data I want this particular model to learn from. So over here, Power BI actually does an automatic selection for me. But if I want to tweak this around, I, of course, can do that too. And that's it in terms of setup. Now, when I train this model, a couple of things are actually going to happen behind the scenes. Automated ML is going to look through all of the columns that I provided with, and it's going to do feature selection. It's then going to iterate through lots and lots of different types of algorithms to try and figure out which are the best algorithms it can learn from for my problem. And then for each of those algorithms, it's actually going to tune those algorithms, doing hyperparameter tuning. So it's going to keep iterating through all of those different steps to build me the best possible model that it can.
Right, so it's actually creating lots of different models behind the scenes and automatically then trying to find the best and most optimized model in your case.
Yeah, exactly. This is all done automatically. We're really trying to democratize machine learning for our business analysts. So once this model is built, I can just use this as part of my Dataflows pipelines and score new, fresh data coming in.
Okay.
And then let's take a look at the sort of reports you can build with this information.
All right, let's do it.
So over here, you can see a report where I've actually added a backorder risk score to all of my data. And so I've got this particular product, which is high risk of being on backorder. And actually, automated ML doesn't just produce these risk scores. It actually produces row-level explanations for me as well. So over here, you can actually see that this particular product is at high risk of being on backorder because inventory is low, we're not doing a great job forecasting it, and we're behind on manufacturing.
OK, so now with automated ML, then business decision makers are also not just presented with probabilities, but are even able to dig in and kind of understand why something might be at risk. So it also makes the insights themselves a lot more actionable to be able to take action.
Yeah, that's right. End users can be a lot more proactive with addressing future problems rather than just reacting to them. However, we know not every single user is going to be building machine learning models in Power BI. And we really want to democratize these sorts of insights and make them available to everyone. So one thing we're doing is we're building AI visualizations for interactive exploration on top of your data.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump into this other tab. We're going to stick with our backorders problem. And here we're going to use the decomposition tree to analyze this data. So what I'm going to do, and what's really cool about this visualization, is I can drill into any column I want in any order.
Right, this is the little tree, and it's going to keep growing.
This is the baby tree, yes.
Yes.
So it's going to keep growing. So maybe we want to break it out by, let's say, forecast bias. And the tree automatically starts expanding.
Right.
Maybe we want to focus on our accurate forecast and jump into demand type. And the tree just keeps growing. But now where the magic comes in is maybe I want to understand where all of my backorders are coming from. And I don't know what to drill into next. It could be a lot of factors. It could be product type.
So those light bulbs might help you out.
Yes, that's a great point, Jeremy. Yes. So over here, I can just ask Power BI to find me high values or low values in my data. So I can select this. The tree grows and tells me I should be looking at my patient monitoring product type. And if I do this again, I can see I should be looking at a particular print. And this is a really useful way for doing root cause analysis. And it's fully interactive with the rest of my report as well.
Awesome. So now what if I don't want to determine the fields to bring in, but just want to maybe ask questions kind of using human speak to the data?
So we actually have just introduced this new Q&A visualization to Power BI, Jeremy.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump into this particular page over here. We've already started plotting this new Q&A visual. And you can automatically see that we have a bunch of suggested questions that just come up. And these are just automatically generated by Power BI by analyzing my data model. So when I select one of these, we just go ahead and plot a visualization as the answer.
Right, so you don't even have to know the questions to ask. And people will remember Q&A more probably as a pop-up feature at the kind of the highest level of Power BI. But now you can use this visualization capability as part of the tiles, and Q&A is really part of the sub-reports themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So now this just becomes another visualization in my report. And as I go ahead and interact with it, the filters flow in and out of the visual. But there's a lot of other cool features that I wanted to highlight. Let's imagine I want to ask about something like backorder dollar amount by area. Now, Power BI is going to answer this question. But what's interesting over here is you can see it has actually highlighted area in red. That means it didn't understand it, but was able to answer the question anyway. And the reason it was able to do this is because we're integrating with the Office thesaurus. So we're automatically annotating the whole data model with synonyms.
Yep.
So region is defined in my data model, and we just figured out area as a synonym for it.
OK, so what happens if you've got some bespoke terms maybe that are for your business only that aren't part of normal dictionaries for synonyms?
That's a good question. So let's look for something like maybe percentage out of stock by product type. So now what's going to happen is you will see Q&A was not able to understand this question, but we've also completely revamped the Q&A tooling in Power BI. So I'm going to jump into the tooling over here, and I can just submit this question. And what we're going to do over here is I'm going to select the whole term. I want to define percentage out of stock, and we're going to use Q&A just to train Q&A. So we can say percentage out of stock refers to something like percentage on backorder. And you can actually see the little preview is going to pop up and show me now that this is getting the correct answer for me.
Cool. So now, as an analyst, is there anything that you can do to help figure out the types of questions that people are often asking against the different data sets that you have here, so you kind of know where to focus on, what reports to build, and kind of where to train it?
Yeah, so I don't have to only rely on, let's say, my own intuition to figure out what vocabulary I should be adding to Q&A. And the reason for that is we have this new Review Questions tab over here, where I can actually see that all of the questions that are being asked in Q&A in the Power BI service. So these are my end users interacting with Q&A in the service, and I can see the questions that they're asking. I can even see if they've requested a fix for this particular problem as well. So now I can go ahead and add this new vocabulary to Q&A.
Nice. So a really great overview of how you can actually use Power BI to prep your data, apply machine learning, and also great new visualizations. All these great Q&A updates even to train the systems, but where can folks go to learn more about these and other updates? Yeah,
so to try out our new decomposition tree visualization and the Q&A capabilities, as of the November Power BI update, you'll be able to download the new Power BI desktop at powerbi.com. For Dataflows and AutoML, you can try out these capabilities in the Power BI service today.
Really great recommendations, of course, and keep watching Microsoft Mechanics for all the updates across Power BI and more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.